Drive. Today I have the pleasure of Alex Panayotou. Good afternoon to you, Alex.
Good afternoon, Julian. It's great to be here.
Yeah, good to see you too, and good to get on a call with you. And you are an endurance mindset expert, and to justify that sense of expertise, you're one of only 5 women globally to complete extreme solo running challenges, such as a 400-kilometer non-stop run, which is incredible. And then also famously, you outran a horse, which is another incredible one to do by 16 minutes. You've got over 15 years of developing leaders in companies like Coca-Cola, Uber, and Microsoft, and you're all about taking the transformation of your extraordinary athletic achievements into practical strategies for leadership, resilience, and burnout prevention. And today we're going to tap into your experience. We're going to tap into your expertise and explore how to create that endurance mindset. But before we get into that, Alex, I'd like to ask you, what do you love about what you do?
I love the fact, and regardless of which element of my work, I love the fact that I'm able to connect with my clients and together to help transform their lives or their careers and to find solutions for some of the biggest problems and issues that they are facing, whether this is a keynote speech, going deeper with corporate professional development programs, or one-on-one work that I do with clients. It's for me, it's extremely fulfilling, especially being somebody who I don't come from successes. I came from struggling originally. And I love this element of my work, the fact that I can help people when I was at a time that I could have used someone like myself to be able to find this.
Explain, you just said you didn't come from success, but you came from struggling. What does that mean? Tell us a bit more about that.
Well, I came from failure after failure. I barely even used to be able to finish a recipe. I was, in fact, today I wrote a post on being called stubborn and mulish as I was growing up, and worrying a lot of people. But I was negative. I was pessimistic. I was unhappy. I was fearful about most things. And that wasn't just, very often there's teenage angst, and this is quite normal for many teenagers. But usually, as we grow older, that starts to diminish. Well, it didn't. Well into my 30s and heading on, towards my 40s, I was just getting into a worse and worse and worse place. So really, really, this was the case. People see me today, and they see what I've done on an athletic level. They see what I've done, or how I work, what I work with, and they see my attitude and my what appears to be constantly positive, which actually really grounded positive attitude. Um, and this really wasn't the case. I don't just say this for impact. It really wasn't the case. So I find this is one of the most powerful parts of my work, the fact that I did have to struggle very, very hard, as many people have, to get where I am today. But I put this into practice in my work as well, because this is very, very relevant for so many of us, even people who are in their successful peaks of their careers and their lives. If we were in a room now with 3,000 people in front of us, 3,000 outwardly, objectively successful people, there would be a handful of people who are truly grounded, fulfilled, and feeling extremely passionate. There would be a huge amount of people, however, who would be, despite their successes, they would be struggling just to get from day to day in other areas of their lives. And it's shocking when you realize this, that many of the people that many people would actually envy, and do, not would, do, are actually struggling in areas inside themselves. So to know this and to have lived this and to be able to bring this into my work as well, it's not
Mm.
just about let's go for top performance and endurance mindset. It's starting from a very, very realistic base. So even when I talk about positive attitude or empathy, it's always from a grounded, realistic, standpoint, knowing what the world is like and knowing the struggles that people have. And I never downplay people's struggles, because I know how very, very dark and distressing they can be.
Because obviously in the struggles and the difficulties is where I know myself personally is where I probably dig deeper, and probably when I've gone through difficult times, and people probably can resonate with this, is where if you do stop and reflect, and this is the important thing, is where you get the most learning from. And I think when you're in success mode, which is brilliant, we need to have those success times when it's a little bit easier, things happening for us, and we need to embrace that as much as the other. You tend to not stop and think. And I think that the lesson is always any point in time, isn't it, to stop and reflect and think, what can I learn from even the success and the failure, or somewhere in between? What can I learn from that to build upon my next level or part of life, business, personal, whatever it may be? Have you found that when you've looked back and your struggles and that journey, has that enabled you to be more reflective how you approach things?
It absolutely, first of all, obviously, because you and I see very much eye to eye, Julian, I'm fully in agreement with you that our greatest learning and our greatest transformations happen when we face through our struggles, but when we face them in the right way as well. And the having gone through very many struggles to get to where I am today, because I'm very, I work with clarity and I live with clarity now. So I actually plan in the same way you take your car for a yearly MOT. I take myself and I take my clients for quarterly MOTs, regardless of whether we are flying and in those wonderful, successful highs, which do feed our motivation and energize us. But I build them into my calendar year, and I stop and I take myself away and I reflect and I say, I gain clarity on the landscape of my business and the landscape of my life at this very moment. So I'm able to reflect. And that's something that this journey and my mindset has allowed me to do, which is to keep, regardless of how busy, exciting, ambitious my work is, my life is, and how happy or successful any particular moment is, I'm always aware of what's going on, what I need to learn, uh, maybe what I need to tweak, what area I might have let slip as well. So you're absolutely right. Yes, this has given me the ability to be able to stop, gain clarity, and do this on a regular basis, regardless of which stage of my career I'm in.
And another thing you said about, those 3,000 people in a room, everybody appears to be successful, and there's probably not enough of people sharing exactly where they're at, are they, in terms of their journey? I know we don't want to be completely always transparent in the sense of gushing and sharing everything that's going wrong, but I think it's often we wear a mask, don't we, just to sort of glide through and try and work things through. But I want to take you back to some of your incredible feats of endurance, and one particular one is your 400k non-stop run, which is a long way to drive, never mind run or cycle, because it's a long way. And when you first decided to run 400 kilometers non-stop, firstly, why? But secondly, what mental shift had to happen before your body could follow that?
Okay, the why would take a very, very long time, because the why built over all of those 8 years of my running challenges, which in fact, the 400 kilometers was my final solo extreme challenge. The why started as me thinking that I was supporting charities, and at a time when in Spain and in Greece, there hadn't been the link between athletes and charities, or even races and charities. So that's how it started. But very, very quickly, I realized, I think probably in my second year of solo challenges, I realized that yes, I was running for charities, but something was happening inside me, and I was, first of all, I was exercising my demons. I was exercising as well. Those things that were holding me back in my life, and they were changing. At first, it was I wasn't conscious about it, but as I became more aware, and probably my training in psychology and philosophy and sociology did enable me to become aware of this. I said, hold on, this process. I need to work through this process. So for a while, people were calling me, saying just as you did, these crazy things I used to do. And in Spanish, they used to say las locuras de Alex's craziness. But it wasn't. It became very strategic, because I realized that what I was gaining through these processes of setting a challenge, preparing for that challenge, troubleshooting, and then basically all alone through that preparation phase, and then having to launch into the challenges and overcome whatever I would find in front of me, but always mindfully and always grounded, that what I was gaining in tools, and my work, my career developed out of that fully. And I never decided to go into this career. My clients would come to me and ask me to do this. So the why, especially the 400, why I decided a year and a half prior to that, I did 2 challenges in the UK, a 300-kilometer non-stop from from Salisbury to Norwich for the Food Bank network, finishing at halftime in a Premier League football match. And then I did another 24-hour in Crystal Palace, and then I ended up again in a football match at Millwall Stadium, again for the Food Bank network. After that, it was really tough. The second one was very tough. And I said, okay, I need to really rest. And I'm going to do one last challenge. If I feel good within 3, 4, 5 months, I'm going to set one more challenge. If I don't, I'm going to stop now. And I was very clear. I said, this is enough. It's time for life. It's time for my business, to focus on my business and life. I did. After 3 or 4 months, I felt well enough. I said, now I need to get a challenge that challenges me. It had to be challenging for me, because I believe that if something is easy and the results are guaranteed, it's not a challenge, and the benefits that I will get out of it aren't really going to be so powerful. So it needed to be a challenge that would physically, mentally, emotionally, strategically, and logistically challenge me. But I was also very clear it had to have a very strong purpose, like all my challenges, not just a charity, but a purpose. And in this challenge, I wanted to really get the element of team the most powerful as I had ever had it, which is what I did. So the why for the 400, I wanted to prepare my most fired up, motivational, most difficult challenge to finish, that wouldn't just be about me, it would be our challenge. And so the why was that reason. And the second question was,
Well, in essence, when you started the challenge itself, I mean, 400k ahead of you, it's a massive challenge. And
yeah,
the reason I asked that is that people might be listening right now who've got some real stretch, big goals they're doing in their business. They maybe, want to, double their business, they want to whatever's significant.
yeah.
How do you sort of shift your mindset, even though you might
Yeah.
not feel you're there to do that such a thing?
So first of all, preparation is vital, whether it's for a massive physical challenge or for a massive professional challenge. Strategy, first of all, you have to see what the objectives are and why. There has to be a very strong why. And for me, in fact, it was my first TEDx many, many years ago, was called Commit Before You Leap. I have to find my why before I commit to something. So, and in business, for me, it's the same thing. We need to find our why, then we commit, and then we have to strategically prepare. And in my case, physically, mentally, emotionally, interpersonally. So working with the people involved. And I did an awful lot of mental preparation. And very often, especially in the workplace, we don't really prepare ourselves mentally for not for the things that are obviously going to tax us and be difficult for us, but the mental preparation for all those things that are going to happen that we can't even begin to think about, that we don't know will happen, the people that will let us down, maybe last minute or in the middle of something. We can, control the controllables, but to be able to face all of those things with the right mindset, so as not just to let me overcome the challenge on day 3 or year 3 if it's a business thing, or month 3, but to actually gain from them and to achieve even more because of it. So that requires a preparation.
And what sort of things would you be doing? What was your mental prep? I mean, give us an example of that, what that might
So
be.
an example, and this is very much on an athlete. Athletes will understand this, but it also applies to in business and in life. I would first of all say, okay, 400 kilometers. And I didn't know where those kilometers were going to be yet. I didn't know where or when exactly, but I started to visualize and prepare myself, not for what I was going to have to face during it, but looking ahead to a finish line. When I realized, okay, this finish line is going to be in the city of Girona at the cathedral, and I knew more or less who was going to be there, again, I wouldn't focus on all the struggle I would have to go through, because you don't know the struggles you'll go through. I very much focused on visualizing that finish line again and again, visualizing the last 8 kilometers before the finish line, visualizing the people who were going to be there, visualizing the noise, the music, the smell, the place, going to the place, living that again and again and again, because by doing that, I made it real for myself. Because when things get very, very tough, we have a part of our brain, which is the limbic part of our brain. And that's the part that motivates us and drives us. When things get very, very tough, and in a physical challenge like this, there will be physical exhaustion, there could be pain, there will be doubts that we can even, and reasonable doubts that we can even finish the challenge or achieve the timing that we've set. And this can be very, very real. The only thing that will keep us going, because there's a myth in the endurance about endurance and getting through, is that we just have to go beating ourselves into the ground and basically run ourselves into the ground. That's not the case at all. But we do have to prepare for the pain, for the lack of motivation, for the doubts, and for saying, for actually stopping wanting to keep going. So we have to believe that we will achieve the goal. If at all possible, we have to believe it. And we do need preparation for this. We also have to prepare ourselves, use a mental regulation, emotional and mental regulation, which is working with our emotions, because our emotions are really powerful. They're very good. They are part of the drivers, and they're part of what will allow that limbic part of our brain to flash and to give us that motivation. However, if we allow the wrong emotions free reign, and I don't believe in controlling our emotions, but it's learning how to handle them. So learning when we need to speak, when we need to stop, think, stay quiet, adjust, question. How we have to be quite clear and strategic in what we need to say to people, how we need to say it. Because when you're in a challenge, a running challenge, so I was the leader of my team, especially prior to a challenge. But the moment I would set off, I had 2 caps. I would take off my leadership cap to a certain extent, and my job was to just run. However, people would still look to me. So if I were to snap at people, if I were to get angry with people who maybe did something in a way I didn't like, they were all there for me, and they were all there to support me. If I reacted in a very, very wrong way, this would backfire on me. Being able to have clarity, even in chaotic moments, have an emotional clarity is absolutely vital. In fact, at the finish line, about 30 minutes before the starting, sorry, not the finish line, the starting line, I had a 6-man team and planned. And about 30 minutes before, one of the members hadn't shown up and hadn't messaged me, hadn't said anything. And he was a very strategic player, someone I needed on an emotional and a security level very, very much. And my team members were beginning to get very worried and anxious, saying, you know, what about so-and-so? What about so-and-so? I said, okay. I waited a bit. And then I said, listen, it's clear. No, it was about an hour before the start. I said, it's clear he's not going to show up. And I believe it has something to do with his family. And they were all looking at me, waiting to see me explode. I said, okay, what do we have to do here? I called up another team member. I said, listen, you cycle, don't you? And he was supposed to be a driver, one of the two drivers. And he said, yes. I said, do you have a bike? He said, yes. I said, do you have really good bike shorts? He said, I got bike shorts. I said, okay, bring your bike. He said, does that mean that so-and-so hasn't shown up? And I said, yes, it does. And, you know, the team was saying, well, what are you going to say to him? I said, nothing. If he hasn't shown up, he's not happy about it. So this doesn't serve us. What serves us now is finding a security, because I need two cyclists who can handle my well-being when the motorhome can't be closed. So what I'm getting at here is we have to be able to have a hold on our emotions, and we need our motivational drive. We need, when we're dealing with other people, I can't expect you, Julian, to react the way that I want you to react. I need to react in a way that will help you react the right way to me. And this applies very much in business. And we know some of the biggest issues in business and some of the biggest catastrophes in business are interpersonal, and they're all avoidable. So only by preparing, this has nothing to do with logistics and strategy. This has to do with me, how I handle myself, and how I handle myself with other people.
Which is where a lot of business and organizations, it is all about the interpersonal skills and sort of relationships that drives. You might have the perfect strategy, but if you don't have the interpersonal skills, then it's not going to be executed as best you can. And obviously that regulation of emotions is really important. Now, we know you did this 400K, which is incredible in itself, massively, well done on that. Now, you would have had, I'm sure, and you've already alluded to some sort of challenge at the start. Can you give us one example where during the run, either the wheels fell off physically, mentally, something went just really awry that perhaps you didn't even plan it, perhaps it was potentially going to happen in your planning, and how you dealt with that from a mindset point of view, and what sort of things you worked through, and perhaps more retrospectively, what have you done? What is your learning from that in your life as well, from a reflective point of view on that?
Well, actually, there was the challenge and my emotional state and the difficulties. Usually in those challenges, they go like this. In that challenge, it started on the usual high and then just went down and down and down and got worse and worse. It was from a Wednesday afternoon at 5 p.m. when I set off, and the plan was to finish on a Saturday evening, between 8 and 10 p.m. So Friday afternoon, you said the wheels fell off. Everything within a 2-hour gap, a whole load of things went wrong. I had a couple of cyclists with me. We were crossing from a bridge onto a road, a car literally watching us because we were all dressed in bright orange, hit the curb, flipped in front of us. So my team members had to stop and help them. I knew where I had to go. One of the motorhomes, you said the wheel fell off. A flat tire. The wheel didn't fall off, but a flat tire, which these were people who weren't used to changing tires on the motor. They weren't used to driving a motorhome, let alone changing a tire on the motorhome. And then I get to my main team, and I was by this stage, that limbic part of my brain was, if there was the odd spark, it was struggling even to stay alight at that moment. I wasn't planning it. I mean, I knew I was going to keep going. Unless I had an accident, I knew I was going to keep going, or if something went wrong. And there were 2 points There was one point there, and there was one point literally on the last day. So that point, I get to my team, and they had prepared me some scrambled eggs. It was the only food that could actually go down. So I was sitting there, and then the most diplomatic of all the team members came up to me, Santi, and he says to me, he said, Alex, what you've done so far is incredible, but this is Friday afternoon. If something doesn't happen in you, of course, because it was me, my motor, this is my motor. If something doesn't happen, you won't arrive in Girona Cathedral before 10 p.m. We know you'll arrive because we've seen you pull the magic rabbit out of your hat enough times, but there's no way you will be able to arrive on time. And this incredible finish line that yes, you deserve it, but that we've all been waiting to share, and it's going to be a wonderful experience. It's not going to happen. And he was very careful. I said, I had to stop there because he came very, 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 very nicely. I said, right. I basically tossed the eggs. I said, Santi, you're running. Santi wasn't at that time a runner. Now he does run. But I said, Santi, you're coming with me and we're running. He goes, what? But I can't. I said, we're running. So we started running. I said, right, we have to make. So this was literally, I had been running. This was Friday afternoon. So I had been running from Wednesday. So 48 hours. I had been running for 48 hours. So imagine the exhaustion, and plus I was 44 by the time, and I could feel my age. I could feel the age weighing me down. I said, right, we have to make some changes. This challenge, we planned this route, and people would come out and support me, and because I was running with a GPS tracker, I said, right, the heat is going up. This was June. Tomorrow is going to be a brutally hot day. I'm struggling with the heat already. I said, we had planned, I said, this challenge was not the route itself, it was 400 kilometers. So the planned route, which had me on the sea level during the night, during the coolest part that's left, is fine, except then tomorrow morning, I have to run up a mountain. So as the day gets hotter and hotter, I have to run up a mountain and then find myself basically at Girona level, which I don't know how many meters above sea level, but it's a mountain route. That is going to make it extremely tough for me. So I said, right, we're changing our route. We can't change our route. The people around me said. I said, why? Because so-and-so is coming to meet you and so-and-so is coming to support you. I said, listen, if they're coming to support me, they're coming to support me. If they're coming to have fun themselves, then too bad. If they want, they can come and find us where we're going to be. We have the live tracker. So my challenge here is, and my goal is not to entertain people. My challenge and our goal is all of us, if we can get up to Girona tomorrow between 8 and 10 p.m. This is what our goal is, all of us together, if we can, safely. So the only way that I can see this as likely, and it's still unlikely, is if we change. I said, so literally now, I said, we're pivoting. So, when I talk about pivoting, I laugh because actually we were heading off into a natural park, I can't remember the name of it, near Girona, down by the sea. I literally pivoted. I said, we're going back. And when we got back to the motorhome, they said, what's going on here? I said, we're changing everything. But there's a flat tire in the other motorhome. But this, I said, no buts, no ifs, no ands, no buts. I'm heading up because I knew the route because I had mapped it and I'd done it several times. I said, whoever can come with me, the cyclist, come with me, grab water, grab some fruit. We're heading up this way. When the other motorhome is fixed, when, we know that route, we're going to get up. And what about the extra kilometers? I said, well, we get to the industrial park of Celrà. We're going to make that our base. And then I'm just going to run up and down and up and down and up and down because that's 8 kilometers outside Girona. So I'm going to know that I'll be able, when I've closed the 300 and whatever it was kilometers, then we head to Girona, and if within the time frame. So being able to think, when I was told that you probably won't make it on time, being able to stop, and at that moment, not literally not stop, start and say, okay, what choice do I have? You need great mental clarity to be able, and then when you're told, but you can't, because everybody, to have that clarity and say, this is the most likely way that we're going to be able to do this. We did this. It turned into the most fabulous night running. I was able. It also motivated me, and I was able to pick up my speed. And through the night hours, which was a foggy night, it was a magical evening. And all of us who were together, a little pod, one little moped, 2 cyclists and 3 runners. It was an incredible evening. I mean, I get goosebumps and we still talk about it. Running up through those mountains, when we arrived at the team, they said, what's happened? Have you jumped in the motorhome? What have you done? I made up hours in that period. So at that point, that was a make or break. And then the next make or break, which I solved that one. The next one was my team that solved it. The next day, we were up at this Seldra, at this industrial park, and the mercury soared, the temperatures soared, and my exhaustion levels were the highest that they'd been. There was no breeze because it was basically just factories and industrial buildings, an almost flat 3-kilometer back and forth that was just asphalt. On the video, the heat radiates. You can just see it. What I didn't know is I was getting close to a heat stroke. I didn't realize this, but at some point my vision started to go, and I communicated this to the team. The team gathered where the motorhome was, and they all started to discuss, what are we going to do? I said, first of all, guys, I need ice. Can someone go to a petrol station, get buckets of ice? So every time I get back to the motorhome, I need cold water. I need ice. But it was just, and this kept me going a little bit longer. And then there was a documentary team, and I was on the ground getting iced for about 5 minutes. And one of the documentary team members was fanning me with one of those silver reflector thingamajigs that I don't know what they're called, that they use in filming. And I think it was my mum afterwards in the conversation. She was one of the team members, actually, one of the external team members. She said, because I said, there's no shade. There's no shade. It was getting worse and worse for me. She said to the cameraman, she said, well, listen, Albert, can't the people who are supporting her, can't they take your shade, your reflector, and hold it above her head to stop the sun hitting? And so for about 2 hours, instead of running, I walked. I kept getting iced every time I would get back to the team. These guys who had come out to support me, they walked literally in this baking sun, and then we started running for the next 4 hours. They ran with me, holding. I mean, it's really light, but you try running for an hour with your arms above your head. It's not. It's not. Even if you're holding, 100 feathers, it doesn't make any difference. It's tough.
No.
Because of and when I say that my challenges, especially after the first few years, that without my team, I wouldn't have been able to get through some of them. I wouldn't have been able. And this one really was. I was able. So the lessons I take away there were, at this point where I actually couldn't see properly, I was still able to have clarity to say to the head of the team, to Frank, if you need to stop me, you stop me, because I knew this. And I was aware that we'd almost, and he went back to the team and said, guys, this might stop right here. It was literally a few hours before I would be able to finish. But then I was able to put myself in my team's hands, and my team thought outside of the box. And I'm not using this as a cliche, literally outside of the box. There was a cameraman instead of filming me, and I told him, you can film anything. Instead of filming, he was there fanning me. So then they really were thinking, we need to help Alex finish so that we get this challenge back on track. And then thinking out of the box was, hold on, this thing that is for filming, that can actually become a shade in a place where there's no tree, no shade, no breeze, no anything. So the takeaways of all of this again is building. First of all, we've already talked about our own mindset, but when we build a team, we shouldn't be looking for the best professionals, the best, whether it's a company or whether it's a team like mine. I wasn't looking for the best mapper, the best food prep, the best driver, the best cyclist. I was looking for the best attitude,
Mm.
people who were passionate, the people who had the same passion and objective as I did, who knew this was our challenge,
Mm.
people who were thinkers, who wouldn't think stuck in a crisis. And and also people who weren't afraid to go the ex. They didn't sleep. They had hotels, they had places they could sleep. They wouldn't sleep. They didn't rest. They saw me and they wanted to be the support that was needed. And we need, instead of thinking that the CVs that we see, of course, people need skills, but beyond those, skills can be learned and specific skills can be developed. Or what can't be learned is attitude, passion, drive, and commitment.
Mm.
Either in ourselves, we can develop them, but when we choose teams, we need the right teams for us.
But it's also that alignment to your purpose, your mission, really important. As in an organization, it's that I know because people talk a lot about cultural fit and get caught up with that, which is just not helpful. The best way is to think: are people going to be aligned to your purpose or your mission? Do they align to your values, which again is really important? And as you say, the skills bit, yes, you might have specific skills you need or certain aspects you need, but that bit can be sort of learnt or taught. But it's the attitude, the passion, the energy is what you want, because you can't teach attitude, as you say. You really can't. And if you've got a team like you had, then they sounded fairly not only committed but also thinking outside the box, actually trying new things, which is obviously important in that situation, certainly when you were melting under the heat.
And you're bringing up the idea that the theme of culture. One of the reasons why this is such a sticky area and often doesn't really happen properly is because many companies think that, first of all, it's a nice to have, but they think that culture is something that we just tell people that this is our culture and you just jump in. No,
Mm.
we have to, and you use the word aligned. For culture to happen, the people who are on board have to be aligned with the values. They have to be aligned with the objectives, and they have to be aligned with the pillars that form that culture. Because
Mm.
otherwise, you're just going to tell people you have to believe this and you have to sing this song because
Mm.
because the company says so. No, not at all. I agree fully with you in that respect.
Just as I suppose, a final question for you. You talked about this clarity, and you had this clarity under pressure, where you um, decided to navigate a different route to sort of combat the sort of heat and everything else you pivoted. And so you instigated that, and you'd already run 2.5 days, and so you were obviously exhausted, tired, and lots of things going on, I'm sure. How do you create, if you think in a workplace context, how do we create a mindset or strategies that help us do those decision making with clarity in an under pressure situation?
Well, obviously, it's not like turn on a switch, of course, and you know that for sure with your work as well, Julian. Um, First of all, working with the, obviously starting at the top, but we can develop all of these elements, but we develop it by developing ourselves first. So developing, I hate the word soft skills, and this is what is used, but there's nothing soft about soft skills. First, we're people and then we're professionals. And it's our human strengths and our human development or lack of development that will either give us the tools that we need to move forward professionally or will hold us back when we have challenges. So um, we have to train these things in ourselves, but you have to make people want to develop. again, you can't tell people that they have to develop. So people have to have buy-in and realize what's in it for me. So only by developing these elements of our, first of all, as individuals, but then interpersonally, all of this has to be aligned with the goals of the company and with the pillars and the values as well. And then it's walking the talk. From the top down, we have to do these ourselves. We have to develop ourselves. We have to practice realistic empathy. We have to practice clarity ourselves, but from the top down. And when this happens, this is what enables groups to do it. And when we develop these in a company and in our professional setting, all of these tools will help us gain the clarity we need outside in our lives when crisis comes and hits us. And this is one of the ways that when I work with teams is I get the buy-in from the individuals, of the senior executives or middle management, or call them what you will. It's because all of these things will benefit you outside, and all of these help me in my running. But outside in my private life, when people used to say to me, but this isn't as easy in companies, it's not as easy in life. When the big things hit, you won't have this clarity. When I woke up 7.5 years ago and was told I had malignant breast cancer, I wasn't told, I realized I had it without even opening my eyes. I had to, in that moment and over the next 24 hours, I had to take all that mental clarity, that emotional regulation, and all that practice that I'd been doing, that I do with clients. I had to apply it with myself and say, right, this is no different from any other crisis or any other challenge. And only by saying, where am I? What is it that I'm going to have to do? What repercussions is this going to have in my business? I'm not going to stop work, but I didn't know how I was going to react. I didn't even know if I would be alive a year from then. But I was able to take that clarity that had been developed, but it had been strategically developed. It didn't just happen, because after the first year of running, it started to be strategic. And we can do this with the teams, and it applies, but we have to develop ourselves. So everything starts, and I know you know this as well, everything starts from us developing ourselves, from our teams developing, and then from us being an example. And I know it sounds very sort of, this is just something that I post and I talk about. No, I don't. This isn't just a phrase to say. I need to be the example so that other people will come on board and follow on as well. We all have to be, and in our lives we have to be.
Yeah, and just building on that, it's those daily practices, because what we're trying to do here, that pressure situation, is creating I suppose a framework that allows you to regulate your emotions, because it's the emotions bit. If they get out of hand, then we don't have clarity, we have fuzziness, and we make the wrong decisions. And I've often, my own personal journey, but also share with leaders, is that put a practice in place that gets you in the moment, whether that's mindfulness, whether that may be yoga, whether it's breathing, whether it's cold water, whatever it may be. Do it on a daily basis that will get you back in the moment. Because when we're in the present, we are at peace and the most control of ourselves, and therefore we have clarity. It's when we start thinking ahead and we get anxious about the future, or we think about the past and we get depressed. And so it's building practices so when things do happen, you can regulate, and doing things, breathing techniques to switch your vagus nerve to make you more from fight or flight to more a relaxed state. And it's those things, and these are physiological things. They're not just sort of made up little techniques. They're actually things that do stuff in your body, and it's having that sort of practice that enable things. It's your journey is incredible, and I said again, we could talk, and I'd love to dig more into what you're doing, and might be another conversation with you. But I love what you've done in terms of with all your endurance events, and it's quite impressive, to be honest. But also, I know there's been lots of learnings and lots of challenges and toughness with that. And you've, I think, helped us today to think how we create that endurance mindset. So I do appreciate you coming on the podcast today, Alex. If people want to connect with you, get in touch with you, what's the best way of doing that?
Best way of doing that is either through LinkedIn, which is Alex Panayotou on LinkedIn, Alexandra Panayotou on Facebook, or via my website, which is www.alexandrapanayotou.com. And I'm always happy for people to reach out, even just for a chat, even for feedback. I love conversations. And this is also why, Julian, I very much appreciate and feel very grateful for being invited onto your podcast, because it's it's all about conversations and sharing points of view that allows us to grow. And it's been a great pleasure.